Hi guys, and welcome back to the basics of programming. So in the previous episode we introduced the idea of selection, and in this episode we're going to take that idea a bit further. So basically we're going to talk about menus, which are quite useful actually. So sometimes when you want to pose a question to the user, you want them to pick from like a set of options, such as like, do you want to quit, yes or no. Like you don't want them to just type in a response. You want that response to be a certain thing, like if you go to a restaurant, you don't want like the customer to ask for like cheesy pizza if you're a Thai restaurant and all you sell is noodles. If that kind of makes sense. So today we're going to discuss how to put menus in, basically. And so yeah, most of this is just code. So now you'll notice I am going to use some comments because it's going to make everything prettier and make more sense, because this actually contains a decent number of lines of code. So we want it to be easily read. So we're going to start by, well, basically what our menu is going to do is it's going to take two numbers, or we're going to ask the user for two numbers, and then the menu is going to ask the user what would you like to do with those numbers, and it's going to give them a couple of suggestions like add them or multiply them, that kind of thing. And then we're going to take the answer, we're going to put it through some selection statements and print a response based on what they wanted. So we're going to start with getting the numbers, then we're going to have the menu, then we're going to print the menu, because you want the user to actually be able to see it. And then we are going to process the answer that we get from the user. Now, as I say, you don't need to put this in block capitals and you don't need this one at the end. I just prefer to write it that way. Cool. So I'm going to call our numbers num1 and num2. You'll notice I do that a lot. It's not exactly convention, but it's how I was learned, and I intend to do that for the foreseeable future. You should always name your variables like something relevant. So if these were strings, I wouldn't be naming them num1 and num2. I'd be naming them like myString and myString2 or something like that. So you want to make sure it's always relevant, because if somebody else was to take your code, it's like comments, they need to be understood by somebody completely different. Cool, so we've got our two numbers. Next, we're going to write the menu. Now, you don't want this all on one line, so I'm going to show you how to make more lines. So we're going to pose a question, which is, what would you like to do with your numbers? And a little colon so they know that they're supposed to answer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do \n\, and that will make a new line. So my first option is going to be add them, and then I need to do the same thing, so \n\, to multiply them, \n\, 3. I'm going to subtract the first from the second, and then on the last one, subtract the second from the first. Now, because this is the last line of the menu, I'm only going to do \n, so that it knows we're done. And then I'm going to finish that with another speech mark. Cool, so we've got our menu there. Then we need to print the menu, but we want to take in an answer as well. So we're going to put their response in there. Int. But we do want an integer, which is why we've given them these suggestions here. Menu. So what that will do is that will display the menu here, and then take whatever the user writes there as their answer. Then we need to process it. So we're going to do this through a number of if statements. So if answer equals 1, remember that double equal sign there because we're comparing, not assigning. So if the answer equals 1, we're going to print the two numbers added together, but because we want to do this nicely and display it prettily, we're going to do that thing where we add strings and numbers together. So I'm going to have num1, comma, plus, comma, num2. And then we're going to have in brackets the sum. And then don't forget the extra bracket on the end. Cool. And then I'm going to leave a space there to separate everything. Elif answer equals 2. We're going to do a similar thing but multiplying. And the same for 3. But this time obviously we want num2 first because we're taking the first away from the second. Now I'm not going to put this as an else, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm going to put it as an elif. That might be the fourth one. So yeah, as I said before, I wasn't leaving that one as the else because you always have to assume that the user is going to enter something wrong. Because what we want them to do is only enter 1, 2, 3 or 4, but you have to assume that the user is really stupid and doesn't do anything you want. So to catch that error, that's going to be my else. So if they, if they enter anything other than 1, 2, 3 or 4, then they're going to see the message invalid response. Don't forget to save that, and we're going to run it. So if I enter 2 and 4, I'm going to add them. So 2 plus 4 is 6. We'll try a couple of other ones. So 3 and 5, and we can multiply them, which is quite cool. But yeah, so that will all work. So as I said, the important bits are like leaving spaces so that you can actually read this code. Like this code is quite readable, considering how many lines it is, which is, it's about 30 lines, which is quite a lot. So yeah, make sure you have a go at challenge 6 now that we've covered menus and stuff. That is important in challenge 6, so do have a go at that. But that's it for today, and thank you for joining me.